Okay, today's daf, Bez Hashem, is Masechta Baba Basra, daf Kuf Lamed Aleph. So I'm just gonna call your attention to the topic that we're discussing today, which is the topic is the topic it begins on daf Kuf Lamed. Hi, Alan. We just began, and we're just today's daf is daf Kuf Lamed Aleph, and briefly just to discuss what we're discussing over here. In Daf Kuf Lamed, we learned that there's an opinion called Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. He says that if a person says that I want one son to inherit me. Let's say he has five boys, and he says, I like one son to inherit me. So he selected one son out of all the other sons, and he says, inherit me. So he didn't use the word gift. I'm gifting it to my son. He says, I want him to inherit all of my assets. So the Rabbi Yochanan ben Broike says that could work. That could work. Because the Gemara, the Pasuk says, V'hoya b'yoim hanchiloi esbonav, when you want to decide which of your boys to inherit your assets. So the Torah gives you ideas of what to do with the Bechor, etc. But it's from the Torah reading, you can interpret that if you make a decision and say, I want this boy to inherit over all the other boys, that boy will inherit all the assets. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. The Tanakama holds that it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can't go against what the Torah says. The Torah says when a man dies, his assets are split amongst his children. He can't decide, oh, I want this child to get the asset. You can gift it in your lifetime, but if you're not gifting it in your lifetime, then you cannot say, I want this boy to inherit all the assets after I die. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika says you can. Let's go to Daf Kuf Lamed Aleph. Now, but Boya Rava. So Rava asked him, okay, and we're gonna the halacha remains like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. It seems that Rebbeinu Hakadosh paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, that you can do that. The truth is that the question that the Gemara is going to say is that how do you know Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika was talking about when a person is in a healthy state? You see, maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika was talking about when a person is on his deathbed. So then, you're very close to bequeathing. You're very on the day that you're about to die. So then, that day, your kids aren't going to inherit. Only then, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika said that you can select one son over all the other sons. But how do you know you can do it when you're very healthy? You're 10 years before you're dying. Boya Rava. So Kuf Lamed Aleph, Amid Aleph, Boya Rava. Rava asked the question, B'bori Heich, when you're healthy, what would Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika say? Can you select one kid over the other? Ki kama Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. When did Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika say that you can select one son over the other child? That word b'shchiv mera, when you're on your deathbed. Then Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika said, okay, you have the license to select one boy to inherit all your assets. The bar uroisahu, because it's the day that you're inheriting your kid, and that kid is expecting to inherit that day because you're a few hours. The guy's a few hours before his death. Aval babori, but if a person is healthy, can loy Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika would not say that you could select one kid over all the other children. Dilma, or maybe afil babari nami, even if you're very healthy, even if the man is very healthy, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, you can select one son over the other sons. So that's the question of the Gemara. Amalei Rav Masharshi el Rava. So Rav Masharshi has said to Rava, Tashema, I'll prove it from a conversation between Rab Nosson and Rebbe. And as I told you, Rabbeinu HaKadosh paskind in the Mishnayos like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. The Amalei Rab Nosson Rebbe. Rab Nosson said to Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Shenisim Mishnaschem ki Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. You taught your Mishnayos like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. And Rab Nosson was questioning, why did you paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika over the Rabbanan? Now, where did Rab Nosson tell this to Rebbe? He proved it. He said, Rebbe, I looked at your Mishnayos, what you wrote in Masechta Ksubis, and the Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Masechta Ksubis, loy kosav la benin dirichrin de yehevi lech minai, inin yarta kesef kesubzayach, Yosef al chukein dim achuhin chayev. There's something called in the ksuba. The ksuba is that ksuba, a person promises his wife 200 and maybe a little extra. Then there's stuff that she brings into the marriage called a dowry, let's say, or some assets that are from her family. So there is a tnai ksuba, a condition in the ksuba that says that a man says to his wife that if you die first, right? So really, if a wife dies, who gets to keep the ksuba? The husband and all the assets she brought into the marriage, right? And let's say he's married to somebody else and has other kids. Comes out, the other kids are going to inherit assets from a mother they didn't have. That wasn't their mother. And so this is a problem that, no father is going to want to give his daughter assets because he's afraid that those assets are those assets that he's giving to his daughter has the potential, if his daughter doesn't have children and dies in her husband's lifetime, will end up in another family. So the truth is that even if so, there's a concept called benin dichrin, that he guarantees that if he has a child with his wife, even if she predeceases him, he guarantees that her children are going to inherit their mother's ksuba and their mother's assets above. And so it's never going to, if she has children, yes, if she has children, it's not, and he takes another wife and has other children, the assets belonging to her, the ksuba particularly, and the assets she brought into the marriage her children will inherit it. Right? That's what you write that in Iksuba when you're married. So let's read it inside. So if you forgot to write that, don't worry about it because it's going to be called into effect anyway because this is a condition of Bezdin. Bezdin has this in every Ksuba. So let's say the guy who wrote your Ksuba forgot to write this, it's still considered a honored condition even if it's not written in the Ksuba. And so, like Kosovla, let's say you forgot to write Binin Dichrin, the male boys, the Yehavi Lech Minei, that you're going to have from me. So man says to his wife in the Ksuba, the boy children that you're going to have from us, Inin Yartun, they're going to inherit Ksav Ksuba the money that I guarantee for your Ksuba, Yoiser al Chulkeyem dim achuhen, more than what it's going to be divided from the estate from their other brothers from another marriage. So therefore, her children are going to get her ksuba and the extra ksuba, what he promised her. So if he didn't write that, chayev shetnai bezdin. So it's a tnai bezdin. Now, so here it's a concept of bequeathing one of the kids to get more assets than the other kids, and he's doing it when he's healthy. So who holds that opinion? Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, and we see that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika extended his opinion to be said even when the man who's saying it is healthy. That's the proof, because you're using the word yartin. So first the Gemara ends so right there, the Gemara is going to say that is the proof. But anyway, the Gemara just goes off on a tangent and says, Rebbe said, I made a mistake. Yizben Tanan. He's actually not writing the ksuba that they're going to inherit. He's gifting it to her. He's gifting it to her children. He's not really inheriting. He's gifting it to her children. So it's not really. You wanted to say that the language that I wrote that I said should be written in the ksuba will only be effective according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. I say no. You know what? I made a mistake in the Mishnayos, and it should be yizbun, that you're gifting it to the kids that you're going to have with this lady. You're gifting her future children the ksuba that she's going to have. So Rebbe wanted to say to Rab Nosson, I didn't mean to say that this Mishnah should be going according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, but it could even go according to Rabbanan, because you can gift something. You can gift something in your lifetime. You just you can't bequeath it. So then Rebbe thought it over, and V'Amar Rebbe said, I made a mistake. Yaldus hoisebi. I made a foolish, immature mistake. V'yasti ponei benosan Bavli, and I was brazen in front of Rab Nosson the Bavli. Rab Nosson was Bavli Rebbe, lived in Israel. And I shouldn't have told him that. Ella the Kaimulam, the truth is that the actual language is Yirtin, that they inherited. Because the boys from that marriage, the boy from that child, from that marriage, will not be able to collect from Nuchasim Mushubadim, from items that were sold in his lifetime. And if it was a gift, he would be able to get from Nechasim Mishabadim. If it's an inheritance, so just like any inheritance, you can't collect from Nechasim Mishabadim. So, but if it was a gift, you could be able to get from Nechasim Mishabadim. And the truth is, the Kaimulam, Benin Dichrin, this concept of Benin, the boys inherit the Ksuba, if there's no money, loy tarfim mishada, they can't go collect from sold property. They can't go recall sold property. So isal kedaitach yispentanan, if the Tanai Ksuba really was originally that it was a gift from the father, so then, and it says that he's gifting it, Yisbun, he's giving it, Amai loy tarfim mishabde. Why can't they collect from leaned objects? Elishmami no. Yirtintanan. You're right. Rab Nosson was correct. I wrote in the Mishnayos that they're inheriting their mother's ksuba, and they're inheriting their mother's ksuba, and it's basically a healthy person that's saying to his wife that when we're going to have children together, your sons are going to inherit more than my other boys from another marriage, from another wife. They're going to inherit more. So we see that one could give more to one son over the other sons in using the language of inheritance, and he's doing it when he's healthy. Man shamet lei, who is the one that says the Islay Haisvara, that you can actually inherit one child over the other child? Rabbi Yochanan ben Broicha, that's Rabbi Yochanan ben Broicha. Ushma mina, from here we see, afilu babari, even if you're healthy, you can do it. Okay, so that's the point that you need to walk away from this Mishnayos, from this sugya right now, is the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broicha. And he holds that a person can tell, even when you're healthy, you're not dying yet, you can say to one son, you're going to inherit, more assets than the other children. You can do that when you're healthy, and you can do that when you're in your lifetime. According to Rabbanon, you cannot do that because you're going against the Torah. The Torah says that when you die, you have to split your assets amongst your children. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broicha is of the opinion that you can actually make one child inherit over the other child. And not only did Rabbi Yochanan ben Broicha say that would work even when you're on your deathbed, but even if you're a healthy person, you could actually make one son inherit more assets than the other son. And we see that's part of the Tanai Ksuba, where a man basically tells his wife, look, if we're going to get married and I have another wife with other boys, your children are going to inherit your Ksuba, and it's not going to be split with the other children. So that's the bottom line. Amalei Rapapa Abai. So Rapapa said to Abaya, just a basic housekeeping question. How does this ksubas benin dichrin work? A person's not around. A person's getting married. He's right now, and he's writing that if we're going to have children, then those children are going to inherit those children are going to inherit the ksuba. So that doesn't make sense. Bein lemandi ama yizbun, bein lemandi yirtun. Whether you put in the word yizbun or yirtun in the language of the Tanai ksuba, how could you bequeath to children that are not born yet? A person cannot sell something that is not to someone who's not even here in this world. Even according to Rameir, that it can work. Hani mila, that was only said only if something is here in the world. But something is totally not here, it should not work. So the question Rav Papa asked to Abaya is what's the whole argument whether the Tanai Ksuba of Benin Dirchrin was going according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broicha or even according to Rabbanan, it should not take effect because it's a man getting married to a wife. They didn't have children yet. So how could he promise her that if they're going to have a boy, that boy is going to inherit the ksuba, or he's going to be gifted her ksuba if she predeceases him? How could you do that? The boy was not even born yet. Ella, how does it work at all? Tonight, Bezdin Shani. It's the whole thing is that the condition of Bezdin. Bezdin has the power to do such things. So Hachiname. So even if you put in the word Yirtun, Tanai Bezdin Shani. So it's a Tanai Bezdin. And it definitely works. So what was the proof that Rab Nosson had against Rebbe that he was going according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika? The whole thing is so out of normality because it's you obviously need to come to up with a super reason why this thing works, because it's a davar shalai bala olam. So you're anyway coming on to a concept called a Tanai Bezdin, that Bezdin makes it work. So it has nothing to do with the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika and Rabbanan. So how did Rab Nosson say to Rebbe, oh, you must have been going according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika? Amalei. So Abaya answered to Rav Papa, Mishum de Kamapekle Bilshain Yirtan, because Rebbe was pedantic and he said, use the word Yirtan. He could have used the word Yispun. So the fact that he used Yirtan, he wanted to say that he holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, that even though now you still need Tanai Bezdin, but still the fact that he's using the language, that he's inheriting one son more than the rest of them, that proves that Rabbi Rebbe was going with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. Abaya said, maybe I'm not saying correctly. Maybe even if you use the word Yirtan, that should not be a proof that you go with the opinion of Yochanan ben Broika. Why? Because there is another Tanai Ksuba, they're called Benon Nikvan, female children. That if a person has female children with his wife, there's a Tanai Ksuba that there when he dies, there he has to feed her daughters until they get married. Okay, so that's called Benon Nukvan, and that language that you use is as that they're sitting in my house and they're going to be gifted from my assets when I die. If we're going to have female children and the man says, I'm going to die, they'll be able to sit in my house and have mizoinis, food for my assets until they get married. Even if you have the right to Tanai Bezdin. So basically, you have two Tanai Bezdin. One uses the language of they're going to be gifted. One is going to be using the language of inheriting. One Tanai Bezdin has the word gift. One Tanai Bezdin has the word Yerusha. If you're using the word Yerusha and you're using the word Matana, even the Rabbanan agree that it's a gift. So it's a gift. So it's really no proof that it goes according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, because really Rabbanan would agree that even though you use the word Yarsi over here by the Tanai Benon Dichrin, but really you really meant to say that it's a gift. And Rabbanan would agree, because the fact that the next Tanai Ksuba of Benon Nukvin, you're using the word gift. So if you use the word gift and you use the word matana, and it's in one sentence, we say that you meant to say it as a gift, and therefore it's a gift and it takes effect in your lifetime. So again, how did Rab Nosson know that Rebbe was going with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika? Rab Nechumi said to Abaya, and others say Rab Nechumi said to Abaya, how do you know these two Tanoim were said in one Bezdin? Dilma betrayed Beidin Itkin. Maybe they were said in two different Bezdins. How do you know? How do you know that they're one of the same? So the Gemara says, Loi sal kadaitech, I don't say such a thing. The Ketoni Reisha, because we learned in the beginning, Zeh Midrash Darish Rab Lazar ben Azariah lefnei Chachamim b'Kerem Yavna. Rab Lazar ben Azariah made this speech in front of Chachamim in this place called Kerem b'Yavna. Habonim Yirshu. The boys inherit. Va'abonis Yizanu. When a person dies, his boys inherit, and the girls get sustenance. Mahabonim einim yorshim ela acha misas avim. Just like the boys can only take the inheritance only after their father dies. Abonos lo yuzoyne el acha misas avim. And so therefore, girls, while the father's alive, they can't take sustenance, food. But after the father's alive, dies, then they can take sustenance because it seems to be that the two takonis of the ksuba are one of the same. Both takanas came at the same time. That's when you can learn one edict to the other edict. But if you learn that they were said in two different bezdins, how could you learn one takana from the other takana? So basically, what we're holding right now, before we'll end on this piece, is that what the Gemara is saying is that again you're back to the square one, that since both takanas was said at the same time and you use the language yirtun by one and yizbun by the other, basically you meant to give it as a gift. So even the Rabbanim would agree that it's a gift, and therefore how did Rab Nosson deduce from Rebbe that he only paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika? And says the Gemara, really, they were said at this two different times. But when they made the second takana of Banon Nikvin, they compare it one to another, so you shouldn't have questions from one takana to another takana, but really they were created at two different times. And the fact is, if they were created at two different times, then why is it by Banon Dichrin we use the language of Yirtun? They would inherit. Right? He used the language of Yirtun. Because he used the language of Yirtun, showed to Rab Nosson that Rebbe was leaning towards the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, that a person could say, and that's the bottom line, that Rab Nosson proved that Rebbe really liked Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, who said that a person can say to one boy and say, "You, my son, you're my favorite son. I want you to inherit most of my assets above the other sons. It's not going to be split equally. And you're not considered a masna amashim kosa b'Torah, that you're going against what the Torah ruled, because that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika holds you can do that, and even when a person is quite healthy." So that ends this topic over here. Let's just go another 2 minutes. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, bottom of Kuf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in them Shmuel, HaKoisev kol nechasav lishtay. Wow, he writes, all my assets belong to my wife. Very nice thing. So he wrote it. So did he? And he wrote it that he's gifting it to her. The truth is, we ignore the language. Why? Because if he has sons, it would be a not nice thing to do that all my assets belong to my wife. His kids will hate him. So what did he mean when he said, "I'm gifting all my assets to my wife after I die"? Le'asa ela petroipa. He meant she's going to be the executor of the assets. She's, let's say, going to have the power of attorney on the assets, but really the assets belong to the children. So that's a very interesting thing. We're trying to read into what a person said. Let's say a person says, all my assets belong to my oldest son. So Pshita, and he has other children, Pshita b'noi hagadol, if he said all my assets should be gifted to my oldest son, like also el apotropos, he only meant that this guy, the oldest son, should be in charge. Why did he write that all my assets should go to my oldest son? The same way you write that all my assets should go to my wife. He meant that this oldest son should be in charge, and that the other children should give respect to the oldest son, that the other children should give respect to their mother after he dies. So therefore, the way he wants the other children to respect their mother, he makes her in charge gives her the power of attorney. And same thing to his older son. What happens, says the Gemara, B'nai hakotan mai. Let's say he wrote, "I'm gifting all my assets to my youngest son." Wait, does that work? So, yes, Itmar, we learned, because really, why would he do that and anger all the other children? But the truth is, a person could gift all his assets to his youngest son. Itmar, we learned, Rav Chanilai bar Idi Amar Shmuel, afilu b'noi hakotan amuto ba'arisa, even your youngest son that's in the bed, it's not a gift. It doesn't belong only to the youngest son, but he makes the youngest son to be the power of attorney. And basically, he wants that all the other children to respect this kid that's in the crib. That when he grows up, he's going to be the apitropis, have the power of attorney over the assets, or the one in charge over the assets. The assets belong to all the children. Because you could make, even though you're gifting it to one son, you could make it that this child to be in charge. So let's say you do pshita benoi va'acher. Let's say you wrote, I'm gifting all my assets to my son, right? And to somebody else, right? So, or to somebody else, let's say to one son over other sons. So you're gifting your assets to a stranger over somebody else. So when you gift all your assets to somebody else, acher b'matana, you meant to gift it to that other person. Ubenoi apitropis. But for your son, if you're picking one son out of all the other sons, then that son becomes the apitropis. If you're picking a stranger versus your other children, then we say that you meant to gift it to the stranger and, disinherit your kids. We'll see more about this tomorrow. The possibility of disinheriting your kids um, uh, versus giving it to one child over the other children. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Right, thank you.
Okay.